Welcome, brave souls, to another bone-chilling episode of our scary stories. I am your host, your navigator through the shadows, guiding you into the deepest depths of fear and suspense. Tonight, we turn the pages of an ancient legend, one soaked in horror and cloaked in the eeriness of the moonlit night. We take you to a forgotten village, to a well of despair that cries with the voice of the damned. Prepare to descend into a nightmare reality where fear takes form and shadows whisper tales of terror. So dim your lights, let the silence envelop you, and allow your imagination to dance with the macabre. Now, dear listeners, let us journey into the abyss as we begin tonight's tale, The Shrieking Well. The first hint of the hamlet of Briarly was a crooked sign, warped and worn by the merciless weather, appearing almost reluctantly out of the thick mist. Its faded letters whispered tales of an era long past, setting an uneasy tone for Dr. Clara Henley and her crew as they drove through the narrow, winding road. Tall, ancient trees bordered the path, their skeletal branches reaching out like gnarled fingers against the foreboding gray sky. A chilled silence lingered in the air, cut through occasionally by the distant hoot of an owl. Dr. Henley, a distinguished woman of 50, bore the air of a seasoned explorer. Her steel-gray eyes were filled with a mix of anticipation and apprehension as they scanned the ghostly village. Clara's loyal companion Max, a bright-eyed young man, was at the wheel. His fingers tapped nervously against the steering wheel, his usually infectious enthusiasm subdued by the eerie surroundings. In the back seat, Professor Samuel Bennett, a man of rigid skepticism and logic, kept his gaze fixated on a worn-out journal. Samuel was a stout man with a disapproving scowl, which seemed to be a permanent fixture on his weathered face. "You sure we're at the right place, Clara?" Max asked, breaking the silence, his voice echoing the unease in his heart. "Positive," Clara replied, peering at the time-worn cottages that lined the uneven cobblestone streets. Their vacant windows were like hollow eyes, void of life, staring blankly back at her. The hushed whispers of the village spoke volumes about the fear that enveloped the place. At the heart of the village, a stone well stood like a sentinel of past terror. It was covered in patches of moss, and time had etched wrinkles on its surface. The villagers gave it a wide berth, their faces pale and eyes full of dread as they cast sidelong glances at the well. An icy shiver ran down Clara's spine as she sensed the malevolent energy emanating from it. "We're here for that," Samuel grumbled, gesturing dismissively towards the well. Clara simply nodded, a firm determination setting in her eyes. That night, nestled within their makeshift base in one of the abandoned cottages, the team set up their equipment, waiting for the moon to climb the sky. The village was now cloaked in an even deeper silence, one that felt unnatural, as though the earth itself was holding its breath. As the moonlight bathed the village, turning the scenery into a palette of silver and shadows, a bone-chilling wail seeped from the depth of the well. It was a mournful dirge, an ethereal lament that clawed at the soul and gripped the heart with an icy terror. Clara felt the blood in her veins turn to frost as she heard it. Max's eyes widened in terror, and even Samuel stiffened, his skepticism momentarily faltering. The haunting melody echoed through the night, a song of damnation reverberating within the forgotten village of Briarly. This was the ghoul's lament, the haunting requiem of the Shrieking Well. As the wailing of the well permeated the still night, even the rustling leaves and the nocturnal creatures held their breath. Dr. Clara Henley watched, mesmerized, as the ancient stone structure, previously ordinary in the daytime, now became the epicenter of an invisible tempest, its unseen waves of eerie lament washing over the sleeping village. The unearthly wail resonated in their ears long after it had ceased, like a phantom echo refusing to be silenced. Each note was etched deep into their minds, a chilling anthem of torment that would forever haunt their memories. "Dreadful," Samuel managed to utter, his voice strangely weak. He quickly recovered, adopting his usual stern demeanor. "Must be the wind echoing through the well shaft." Max, still pale and visibly shaken, exchanged a knowing look with Clara. No wind could mimic such torment, such an outpouring of despair. Clara gently patted his arm in reassurance, her gaze lingering on the well. In the cold light of the following morning, Clara delved into the annals of Briarly's forgotten history. Buried in dust-laden scrolls and obscure local chronicles, she discovered tales spun by ancestors of the village, tales of a ghoul trapped within the well by a potent witch, and a pact inked in fear and desperation. Samuel dismissed these ancient accounts as folklore designed to keep the curious at bay. Clara, however, saw the tremor in his hand as he flipped through the parchment, the skepticism in his voice tinged with a rare hint of anxiety. Max busied himself with their equipment, trying to make sense of the inexplicable phenomena they had witnessed. As he pored over the data, his hand accidentally brushed over an image of the well, and he couldn't suppress a shudder. Despite his attempts to hide it, Clara noticed his unease. Evenings in Briarly were heavy with an intangible dread. As the day waned, the villagers retreated into their homes, and a palpable hush fell over the hamlet. Even the usual creaking of old timber and whistling wind were muffled, as if silenced by an invisible hand. On their third night, under the silver gaze of the full moon, the team found themselves drawn towards the well. Each one was wrapped in their own apprehension, their heartbeats echoing the rhythm of an unspoken fear. The raw, chilling wail began again, but this time, there was something almost inviting in its notes, a haunting melody calling out to them. Clara, Max, and Samuel looked at each other, a silent consensus passing between them. As the last note of the ghoul's lament faded into the night, they made their resolution. They would descend into the well, into the belly of the beast, and confront the shrieking heart of Briarly. Morning dawned upon Briarly, its first light illuminating the stone well in an eerie glow. Clara, Max, and Samuel stood before it, their resolve firm. Draped in her worn leather jacket and armed with her researcher's determination, Clara was the first to step forward. Max, armed with high-tech devices, followed suit, his eyes resolute. Samuel, behind his facade of skepticism, gripped an old journal tightly, as if drawing strength from its worn-out pages. The village remained in a state of silent apprehension, as though it sensed their intent. Each creaking door, each whisper of the wind, seemed to implore them not to break the unspoken pact with the ghoul, to leave the well and its haunting melody undisturbed. Under the shadow of the well's arch, the team geared up. Ropes were tethered, harnesses checked and rechecked, and headlamps flickered to life. Clara's fingers traced over an old, ornate medallion, a good luck charm she'd carried on all her investigations. She whispered a silent prayer to the forgotten gods, then cast one final look at her team. The gravity of their task weighed heavily upon them, the uncertainty adding an edge to their determination. The descent was slow, the silence broken only by the occasional clanking of their gear against the well's stone wall. As they descended, the sky became a small circle of light that seemed to fade with each passing moment. Max's equipment, reliable in all previous investigations, started to behave erratically. Displays flickered, readings went haywire, and signals got lost in the ether. Bathed in the weak glow of their headlamps, they noticed symbols etched into the stone. Clara, recognizing them as a forgotten language of old, traced the runes with her gloved fingers. The markings seemed to vibrate with a dormant energy, sending an icy shiver up her spine. "Perhaps we should turn back," Samuel suggested, his voice betraying a tremor. His eyes, usually steely, held an unspoken fear as he glanced at the cryptic symbols. "No," Clara replied, her voice echoing down the well. "We press on." As they went deeper, the temperature dropped, an unnatural chill creeping into their bones. The well's dark void seemed to close in around them, like a beast ready to swallow its prey. But they kept descending, pulled towards the unseen and the unknown by their insatiable curiosity. The closer they got to the bottom, the heavier the air became, suffused with the residue of centuries-old terror. The final vestiges of the world above were swallowed by the engulfing darkness. They were now in the domain of the ghoul, in the heart of the shrieking well. Upon reaching the bottom, their boots met not with the damp earth they expected, but a hard, cold surface, reverberating with an ancient energy. Their headlamps cut through the darkness, revealing an intricate array of etchings that covered the floor, spiraling out from the center like a spider's web. Max examined the markings, his tech malfunctioning less now. He noted with growing unease that the designs bore a stark resemblance to the neural pathways of a human brain, intricately detailed and vast beyond measure. Clara knelt down, tracing the etchings with trembling fingers. She felt an inexplicable pull from the center of the spiral, a call that sent chills racing down her spine. Before her eyes, the etchings began to shimmer, an otherworldly glow radiating from the depths of the well. The air seemed to thicken, the darkness around them coiling with tangible dread. Samuel clutched the worn journal tighter, his earlier skepticism replaced by a creeping sense of terror. He tried to speak, to voice his fear, but the words died in his throat, strangled by the tension that filled the well. Suddenly, a haunting melody filled the air, its notes echoing the eerie wail that had drawn them to the well. The ground beneath their feet pulsed in rhythm with the ghoul's lament, each beat a chilling reminder of their intrusion into the creature's domain. Max's equipment began to react violently, the displays flickering in sync with the pulsating ground. Samuel recoiled in shock as his journal burst into flames, the ancient pages consumed by a sudden blaze, their secrets lost to the flickering fire. Just as Clara prepared to call a retreat, the melody shifted, its haunting notes curling into something almost human, a voice, a whisper pleading for release. Images filled Clara's mind, the ghoul trapped at the bottom of the well, its ethereal form caged within the intricate etchings, its song of despair echoing through the centuries. Compelled by a force she couldn't understand, Clara stepped into the center of the spiral. As she did, the well fell silent, the ghoul's lament fading into a deafening silence. The team watched in horror as Clara raised her arms, her voice joining the ghouls in a duet of desperation and defiance, her notes filling the well, carving a path towards an uncertain end. As Clara's voice filled the well, the markings beneath her feet lit up, a spectral luminescence that pulsated with an otherworldly life force. Max, ignoring the erratic behavior of his equipment, watched as Samuel scrambled to retrieve the now charred pages of his journal, his fear morphing into a frantic desperation. The voice that came forth was not Clara's. It was ancient and hoarse, filled with centuries of pain and longing. It wove itself around her melody, an eerie harmony that set their teeth on edge. The air within the well swirled with the power of the unseen ghoul, the walls groaning under the force of its energy. Freedom, it croaked out through Clara's lips. End my torment. Without thinking, Max lunged towards Clara, intending to pull her back from the well's ethereal heart. But an invisible force barred him, hurling him backward. He hit the wall with a grunt, dropping his malfunctioning equipment. Samuel, for the first time, seemed to understand the gravity of their situation. He clawed at the stone floor, trying to gain his footing, his eyes wide with terror. "Clara," he cried, reaching out towards her. The ghoul's song reached a crescendo, filling the well with a dissonant symphony. Clara's body trembled as she remained in the center of the ethereal spiral, her arms spread wide, her voice intertwining with that of the ghoul. Then, without warning, the sound ceased. Clara's form collapsed to the ground, unconscious. The markings around her faded back to their inert state, leaving the well shrouded in an eerie silence. Max scrambled to Clara's side, feeling for a pulse. Relief washed over him when he found it, steady and strong. Samuel, in a daze, sank to his knees, the weight of their reckless adventure crashing down on him. As Clara's eyes fluttered open, they knew. The haunting wail that once resonated from the well was silent. The ghoul, trapped for centuries in its stone prison, was finally free. Daylight filtered into the well, casting an ethereal glow on Clara as she stirred. Max and Samuel hovered over her, their relief mirrored in each other's eyes. "It's over," Max whispered, the weight of his words sinking into the chilled silence of the well. They climbed out of the well, hauling Clara between them. The sun had begun to rise over the village of Briarly, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink. The townsfolk watched from a distance, their faces etched with a mixture of fear, relief, and disbelief. The village elder, a wiry old man with eyes that held centuries of wisdom, stepped forward. His gaze was hard, but in it lay a grudging respect. "You have freed us from the ghoul's curse," he said, his voice echoing the unspoken gratitude of the villagers. With the dawn of a new day, the spectral cries of the ghoul were replaced by the ordinary sounds of the village, children's laughter, the clatter of utensils, the whispers of the wind. The well, once a symbol of terror, now stood silent, a testament to their harrowing adventure. Back at their makeshift camp, Clara, now fully conscious, recounted her experience. Her voice wavered as she described the ghoul's lament, its centuries-long imprisonment, and its plea for freedom. Samuel, silent until then, pulled out the charred remnants of his journal, the once valuable records now no more than ashes. He watched as the wind caught the loose pages, scattering them to the four corners. In the following days, they packed up their equipment, their investigation concluded. As they left Briarly, the well stood silent against the horizon, its shrieks of horror replaced by the melody of liberation. Their task was done, the ghoul freed, its song of the damned silenced by the symphony of dawn's redemption. As they drove away, the village disappearing in the rear-view mirror, Clara took one final glance at the well. In the glow of the setting sun, it seemed almost serene. The ghoul's voice was but a haunting memory, its eerie lullaby replaced by the tranquil hum of the village. And as the echoes of the past faded into silence, Clara knew that their journey into the heart of the Shrieking Well would be one they'd never forget. The memory would linger, a chilling reminder of the thin line between the world of the living and the realm of the damned. And so, dear listeners, we emerge from the depths of our tale, forever marked by the ghoul's haunting lament. As the echoes of the Shrieking Well fade into silence, we are left to ponder the thin line between our world and the realm of the damned. Remember, when the veil of night descends and the shadows lengthen, there are horrors that lurk in the unseen corners of reality. Until next time, keep your eyes open, your senses sharp, and your courage steadfast. This is our Scary Stories signing off for tonight.